All right, welcome. These are, in fact, a few of the favorite things that I like about all the different products in Arbortext, PTC's Arbortext product suite. And please be sure and put your favorites in the window and whether you find the same ones interesting or not and which ones yours are. I always like to know what other people are interested in and what makes it good for you. All right, so we're Single Sourcing Solutions. We're partners specializing in Arbortext. We've been doing this since I've been an Arbortext user for 20 years now. This is my anniversary year. We're mostly mentors and coaches and trainers. We like to teach other people what we do and how to do it. We like to grow other capable practitioners. We are enablers. We do have an Arbortext Monster Garage. That was a webinar series, I don't know, a while back now. It shows a lot of different tips and tricks and things to do and how to trick out your Arbortext environment because you really can make it do what you want. And we do the TC Dojo webinar series and are launching something new next month. These are the books that are currently out there and available on Amazon. They are EPUB, they are print. You can get them from our website too. And if you really want to hear the story about why I wrote them, there's a long story down here and it's both fun and it's extremely frustrating. But all of these books were written in DITA, published with Arbortext, and in Styler style sheets. So, you know, you can, anything we can do, you can do, and absolutely make print ready copy. Very exciting. So when I get a tool, I want to know some basic things, and then I want to go monkey with it. I want to feel it. I want to touch it. I am a kinetic learner in some respects. So I want to get my hands on it right away, and I want to go and create. I don't want to have to do heavy training just to be able to use it. And Arbortext has always been that way for me. So we're going to talk about some of my favorite things that enable me to be a creator, not just a tools person, working hard to create documentation, right? And these are some of the things that, for me, define why Arbortext is that match for me. It is coherent, integrated, and complete from authoring and illustration, content management, and to publishing. I don't need to go outside and integrate something else and deal with that boundary issue where the two vendors on either side say, well, that's your problem, and the other one says, no, that's yours. I like that it is completely integrated and complete. Also, one of the big things for me is that every part of every release focuses on improving user experience. In this time of 2020, we are, all of us, focused on making it a better experience for our customers. And I appreciate that they do that for me. It's not just bug fixes and new features. It is truly redesigning and addressing the user experience from end to end. Also, there's a huge community of support available to you so that you can become a good steward of your investment. There's PTC communities. There's a whole bunch of people on Twitter who are Arbortext users. There's all of the community will be there to answer your questions, and PTC support is there for you too. And they will help you. You can record a video so that they can see what the problem is. You can upload that video, and they are immediately responsive. And it's an extensive network that's there for you, right? It is not a complex product for the sake of complexity. So to fund that army of consultants, although there are a lot of Arbortext partners out there, and we are one of them, right? But really, the variety and depth of product that is part of the Arbortext product suite, it provides a flexibility to individual customer needs, not to fund an army of consultants. And that is something I appreciate, even though I am one of said consultants. But we take things a little different, as you all know. So, editor, let's start here. Editor is for authoring and assembling content, as we all know, right? We can create user-usable components. It's 100% XML inside and out. I don't know how it's implemented, but you know, the files it creates are pure XML. You can always get at it. And the UI, the user interface, is designed for people who have to write for a living. You don't have to write angle brackets. You don't even have to see the angle brackets. And in fact, you never see the angle brackets, but you can see the tag representation of the angle brackets. You never worried that you're going to do something wrong or that you're going to break the file because it'll yell at you. It's a really big window. if you're trying to do something that is possibly detrimental to you and your processes and your business. So, you know, it's designed for people who have to work to write for a living, that don't want to build tools for a living. You can pretty much pick it up and use it and you're done. About 3 years ago, we did a video. It's on YouTube. It's called Arbortext So Easy a Child Can Use It. And it's our highest rated video. It's had millions, it's hundreds of thousands. I don't know how many users. I haven't looked in a while. But that's the biggest watched video, because you can just pick it up, control, copy, paste, all that stuff, all the things you expect to work, and they work in fairly expected ways. There's some extra stuff because it's XML and not Word, but that's just because it's not Word. Doesn't mean that it's any harder to learn. So here are my favorites. I like the ID wand in the properties set window, right? So you bring up the properties for the element, and you can see there's a little magic wand. It does the ID for you. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about naming. I don't like to focus on naming for IDs because, you know, if it's representative of the content that's in it and the content that's in it changes, you can't change the ID later. There's too many dependencies on it. So the ID wand being somewhat representative and completely random and absolutely stable is huge for me. I also love, and it seems silly, the hyphen and dash M dash. If you just click the dash key 3 times, it changes between these 3 things. It just cycles through. So you don't have to remember special key code, special character name. You just tap, 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 and it puts the right one that you want. I like select element content. This takes everything between the tags. You don't have to carefully mouse. You can just do select element content. And it grabs everything between the 2 tags that are the most recent parent. I do a lot of data conversion, and I move stuff around and I edit things. And that one's a really handy one for me to use. And I do that one a lot, actually. Number 4 is not just my favorite, it's Janice's too. Janice is my partner. The document map view, having the map view as well as the edit view, I really love that. This is something that new users kind of hate because they want it to feel like Word, feel like the desktop publishing they know. And you can turn that off, right? But a basic user becomes an advanced user pretty quickly. And they open up this document map because it's easier to move stuff around. Big elements, chapters, do like developmental edits. It's much easier in the document map. You can see where your cursor is a little easier too. Are you in it? Are you in it at the top? Are you before it? Are you after it? It's a lot easier to see that relationship in the document map view. And of course, the resource manager. Now, I'm not going to talk about the resource manager because it's coming up again later on the screen, but I am a huge fan of the resource manager, and I wish it worked for every doc type, not just for data. And I think that was on a product request list somewhere, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure Melissa will know. But anyway, I am a big fan of the resource manager. Other things about editor, right? I like that you can keep stuff out of your head. Schematron implementation, adding Schematron support makes it easy for you to not have to remember, oh, this has to be structured this way. The content of the element has to be year dash, month dash, day, or it has to be day dash, right? Or it has to be an underscore. It has to be some kind of construction. Schematron lets you take that stuff out of the author's heads, automate the checking, and it's beyond just the elements in their order. So I like Schematron because it can pull that stuff out of your head and make it just easy for you to author. Tag templates, I hope everybody's using those. Tag templates are one of the key features, right? You can, if you have a 3-column table that always has the same heading and it always has at least 4 rows, maybe more, and you want centered in some columns and distance wise, you want this one to be shorter, and these, you can format your table, create a tag template of it, and then every time you want that table, you just insert it again and again and again without having to do all the work of setting it up over and over. Tag templates are huge, actually, and they can go as far as when you do file new, that is a tag template as well, and you can control all of those things and add more of those if you want to have different kinds of data concepts, and they're all structured a little differently. You can do that too. So yeah, I love that. 3 is more of a process thing, but because of the document map view, you can create your shell, your outline of whatever it is you're creating, as we all learned early on in school, way back in the day, create your outline first and then fill in the content. It's really easy to create that outline and see it on the left-hand side and then develop your content on the right. And really, you can do just about anything. Their editor is, every part of the editor interface has an API call behind it. You can do anything you want with your environment and with your documents. And they make it very easy for you to do that if you want to go down that programming route. So that is a key feature that a lot of people will use. IBM used it heavily back in the day. That whole IBM workbench was built on top of Editor through the API calls. So you can really do anything you want. I also like comments inside the source. The comment feature, insert comment, doesn't show when you publish, but you can keep notes to what you're doing in there. And it makes it really easy to have comments that are good for the working author that don't ever show up in publication. I have some more. It's very good. Right? All the things about the UI you can customize to your heart's content, and you still get the same output no matter who you are and how you do it. As I get older, I am pushing up the size of the fonts and everything in the editor, the UI, and I can do that all I want, and it doesn't affect how the print or the HTML output looks. I can customize my working environment to suit my needs, whether I need high contrast or red-black color, red-green colorblind adjustment. I can do all of those things, and it doesn't affect the output at all. I really appreciate its being, and the effort is there to make my working environment, my usability, as good as it can be for me. There's a lot of work and effort that the team puts into the user experience and the user interface. All of the trained behaviors that we have from other tools, Control-C, Control-X, all of the Windows movement, all of those things that we are used to from other Windows tools are part of Editor, and they're where you expect them to be. And there's more than a way to do anything. There's an icon button, there's a menu item, there's a shortcut key, there's a pop-out window often that has that stuff also. There's more than one way, so however you work best, that's there for you. I'm a kinetic person. I know by muscle memory where I need to go to find the thing that I'm going to do. I am not a control key person. I don't know all the shortcut keys. That's not my way of working. But I have a whole list of those in our membership site. We have a whole list of those, a sheet that keeps track of all of them because some people are, right? But that editor and Arbortext is responsive to my individual user needs. That's a huge win for me. That is one of the things that I like best about the product. So now we're going to talk about Styler. Does anybody have any editor tips or things, Melissa? I'm going to go on, but I'm curious as to if anybody's chatting back to me. Hello, talk back.
I don't see any chats right now, but I'll keep you posted if anyone does.
Definitely, please do. Okay, so Styler. Styler is the one style sheet that creates all of those output types. It's delightful, right? Who doesn't want to not write 18 style sheets just because you have 18 output formats when a lot of the stuff is very similar? Being able to do that all from one is huge. Also, I have a nice UI here in Styler. That's an older picture, actually. And I don't have to be a programmer to do it. I don't have to learn how to code XSL. I don't have to learn how to do too many detailed, in-depth programming algorithms in order to make something do what I want it to do. And that's a huge thing. This is the only interface of its kind for style sheets, as far as I know, really anywhere for XML style sheets. I think it's the only one. And it only works on Styler style sheets, as you'd expect, and it should. So my favorite things about Styler is the fact that there is a Styler at all. That's the top three, really. I am a huge fan of Styler. We wrote the books and published them with Styler. I like the APP engine underneath because it gives me that ability to do just the way everything I can do in the UI. I can do whatever I want. There's all the ways, the mechanisms, API calls, and mechanisms for me to do things the way I want to do. APP does that too. You can pretty much do anything if you want to, because APP makes it capable. The last one here is number 5, the samples directory. And I don't know that everybody always notices that that even exists, but in the install tree where you see program files, PTCs, editor, there's a samples directory. And that samples directory is huge. There's all kinds of ready-made Styler style sheets in the samples directory that do various things. You can either deploy them directly as modules in your style sheet, or you can use them as an example to code something similar that you want to do. They're great examples, and it's huge there, and I absolutely appreciate that that's in there. So I want to make sure that everybody knows about that if you didn't already. One of the other things I really like is the out-of-the-box style sheets. There is a style sheet for every doc type already. You can take advantage of that if you want to, and then you only have to change the things you care about. Like, I don't want blue titles, I want green titles. Okay, that's one small change from the base style sheet and you're pretty much done, if that's the only thing you care about. The ability to have that out-of-the-box style sheet already in place means you get a lot of stuff already done. You get a lot of stuff free. And as it revs up from year to year, and they add Ditto 1.3 and Ditto 1.4 and Ditto 1.5, the out-of-the-box style sheet will cover the new elements automatically because it has to, in order to be a fair and representative example. So you get the coverage of the new elements, whether you're using them or not, for free, basically. You get a lot for very little that lasts a long time without breaking. All right, and you can rev up your entire style sheet. If you're tied to the one that's in the install tree, you can rev up your entire style sheet, your stuff, and you still get that stuff revved up too, because that's the latest that's supported. It's really great, actually. So I love those, actually. And they work differently. The DocBook one and the Ditto one, specifically in terms of how notes are formatted, they both approach the problem differently. So depending on which one you like, you can look at the other one, see how it's implemented, and you're done, basically. So there's a lot of stuff there. It's both examples as well as a base to get started with. In the Styler window, in the middle, a lot of people ignore that little middle panel that's a description panel. You can keep notes about your changes on all of the rules and all of the style sheet and all the changes that you make. You can keep notes about what you did, why you did it. You're documenting your style sheet, because I guarantee you, in a week, you won't remember what you did and why you did it that way. So please use that description panel to keep your notes, and you will thank me for it later. So things that Styler makes easy: modules. You should all be using modules to encapsulate certain things so that they are reusable. I typically will put all of my property sets into one module so that I can use that module in any style sheet I want. I made the color settings already. I made the bold font choices, the families. I did all the boxing rules, how thick are the rules around the table. All of these things are already there, and they're property sets. And I want them portable, so I'll put them in a module so that they are. And then I can just pick that module, drop it into another style sheet, and I have access to all of it immediately. So that's a key feature in how Styler style sheets are built. The fact that you have modules, when you put that in context of the fact that you can override behaviors, just like any other XML thing you'd expect to happen, you can redefine the behavior at a higher level, and then it will override the property underneath. So say that I've got, color title right now is blue, and it's defined in the out-of-the-box style sheet. If I take that out-of-the-box style sheet, put it as a module in mine, I can redefine that color to green, and that's all I need to do, and I get the whole thing done, but now all my titles are green. It overrides that behavior, and that overriding behavior is a function of XML, and it's not native to the technology, and Styler takes huge advantage of that in order to make it easy for non-programming Styler developers to use, and it's really a huge benefit. You can do that with XSL, but it's a little bit harder, and it's definitely harder to trace. It is harder to trace where that hierarchy of overrides happen, except Styler has those blue white block indicators. there's a little window, there's a little column in the Styler window that has a blue block, a white block, or a blue over white, or a white over blue. And if it's blue, or blue over white, you can tell that it's overriding another rule, and that's the active rule. It's a lot easy, just straight up visual cue to tell you that's the rule that's active. And that's a huge thing. Property sets, I already talked about my undying love for property sets, but really there's two reasons. That ease of formatting, styling it once, and using it everywhere is really great. The other is the HTML CSS style name matching. If you are delivering HTML and you name a property set the same thing as the CSS style name, you basically get the HTML output. HTML output will match whatever name is in your CSS style sheet that you upload at the end. That's a tricky thing, and I haven't done a video on that, but I really probably should. Maybe that's what we'll do in December. All right, PE.
Oh, yeah, there was a couple comments here.
Yay!
Yeah, I like Styler import and export of generated content to and from language configurations.
Yeah, that's a huge one, actually. The XLIF ability to localize your style sheets is a huge one, and it is so easy. It's just like you basically put the panel, you set it in the style sheet properties, and you import and export it, you're done. Yeah, it's beautiful. It really is. Good catch. That's a great one. Another one?
And there was another one about editor, because I like using editor by resizing the window to determine how a table will respond to a changing window size for HTML5 output.
Yeah, so tables are one of those things that are a little tricky. What you have in editor is literally typically what you get in HTML output. Although resizing the editor window doesn't necessarily guarantee the responsive look in HTML. There's a lot of tech underneath that kind of stuff, but I think Simon is working on some of that to make it easier. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I get what you're trying to do. That's a good way to do it though too. Interesting.
And there was another question: how which of your books you wrote explains a single sourcing content?
Oh, the concept behind, like why you do it in the first place? None. Well, possibly not true. The yellow one is probably the closest. That is designed for people who are only ever used Word and are thrust into Arbortext with no preparation. If you want stuff that's more the argument behind why you do single sourcing, I wrote a paper for ACM SIGDoc in 2002 that's on the website. Either send me an email, I'll have my connection detail information at the end. Send me an email and I can at least point you to the paper. And the research I did, that was back, I wrote that paper in 2002. So, and that's when it was all still kind of a new concept for people. DITA didn't exist. I presented that paper, in fact, right next to Michael Priestley, who is announcing DITA going to Oasis to the world. That's how far back that is.
This was how to single source. Paper was how to single source.
No, the paper is some long, complicated name because it was written for the ACM Digital Library. But if you connect with me on LinkedIn and remind me, I'll send you the link to it because I still have a copy of the paper on the website.
Yeah, I'll connect you with her. Okay.
Yeah. All right, there we go. Let's go on to Publishing Engine if there aren't any more.
Nope, that's good.
Okay, good. So I am a big fan of Publishing Engine because, I want to offload that publishing from my computer. I don't want it to lock my computer, and as it used to do, as many things used to do, right? It would hold everything and do the publishing. Publishing is a big job. You're actually pulling everything together into memory, and then you're moving it around and you're formatting and you're creating tables of contents and you're shuffling a lot of material around. And then then it goes out. But that shuffling is a big job, and there's a lot of information there. And the bigger your book is, the more graphics you have in your book, the bigger that memory imprint is. So Publishing Engine is a great tool because it offloads it all from your computer. You can queue it up the jobs, and there you go. Plus, and I will say this with love, getting publishing out of the author's hands on a regular basis only serves to improve their movement in the separation of form and content. You should not be author, publish, author, publish, author, publish. What does it look like? What does it look like? And I know early on that we all feel that because we come from desktop publishing where what you see is what you get. But with XML, it's what you see is one possibility. Maybe it's print, maybe it's HTML, maybe it's something else. And if you're coding to the layout, you're not doing justice to the content itself. So pushing things off to publishing engine can really help with getting authors acclimated to a new XML publishing environment. And it can handle anything you throw at it, like anything you throw at it. There's a video from, I want to say 2010, and the quality is terrible because we recorded it with, at the time, it was Microsoft Live, and everything was new. I mean, like this was 10 years ago or more, where Lori Stevens from GPSL showed us APP, showed us, me personally, APP really for the first time, like really what it could do. And it's a great video, probably our second most watched video, but the quality is pretty low, and we're going to have to re-record it at some point. But if there's something you want to do in publishing, guaranteed APP can do it. And that's the engine underneath publishing engine. My favorite things, publishing rules. Love the publishing rule. Nobody makes enough use of the publishing rule. So when I was publishing the books, because we did print, EPUB, both, and I did a preview version of 101 that has part of the book, and then it has like a get the rest of the book thing, right? So it doesn't publish the whole book, and it publishes that in a different page size. It's 8.5 by 11 instead of the 6 by 9, which is what the final book is. I could create 3 publishing rules so that all I have to do is publish with rule, and it does all the right things. All the settings for that, the style sheet choice, any profile information is part of that publishing rule, and I didn't have to set that every time I wanted to publish. You know, you fix something and you're like, oh, did that work? And you're like, no. Okay, you got to publish again. And having to create the publishing conditions every time, that's just effort that you don't need. So the publishing rules are one of my favorites for that. The offloading to resource-intensive publishing, I already talked about that, right? Getting that stuff off of my desktop and queuing it up and letting different people do it, great. You know, send it back when you're done publishing so that I can do a proof scan. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep doing my work. That's a huge benefit for offloading that. And it works like it's the same tech everywhere. If you can see it in Editor and Styler, there's a chance PE is going to do the same thing. You're not going to get a different result because it's a different tool. You can guarantee that that's all going to work the same. This is part of the same reason why every software company finalizes on a compiler. They don't all get to choose their own one. You use Microsoft, or you use Sun Java, or you use Amazon Java, or you use Borland C++. You use a compiler so that all the known things going in come out the same way and all the bugs are known. You don't mix and match that technology so that one who's strict on one rule is slack on another, but they're strict on something else that this one isn't, right? You need to sort of standardize. And I appreciate that it's the same tech above and below the covers everywhere. That's all I've got for PE. And we're going to talk about Windchill if there's any things. No? I know it's not. PE is a hard one because you don't see it, right? It's a server run thing and there's nothing to see. You can actually,
there was no comments.
You can actually run stuff through PE and you can see it. Like you can open up an editor front end to PE, which is kind of interesting. But you don't need to. So let's talk about Windchill. And I've been around the block a long time. I've seen a lot of things. Windchill does a couple of things really well. The process management is part of that. Sorry, coughing a little bit. Process management and control is part of content management. If you're just storing content and revisioning it, you're not getting everything. You need to be able to have states of being as well. This is in work, this is done. This is approved. This has been approved by this many people, and you get the sign off and all the rest of that, and it sort of encapsulates it all into one place. I've come to appreciate that more as years pass and as more things fracture in other places in my processes. having this one place where all of that works is actually kind of a relief. Also, the web architecture is an important part to this piece. It is, yes, you can get to Windchill from inside Editor, but there are some things where I tell people to use the browser and not the in-editor browser. If you are doing operational kinds of things, you are able to separate those in your mind by separating the way you go at the process and going into the Windchill through the browser to do operational tasks helps you focus and remember what you're doing and make sure that things work the way expected. When you try to bandage things onto something that's not really designed for that, people start to get confused and uncomfortable as users. We've seen that more than once. So we try to separate and give a purpose to each one. And that's helpful just from a user perspective and sanity as well. The other thing too is it's designed for structure. You can always see the structure view and how the things relate to each other. You can see how one component is used by other components and where it fits in the overall content architecture. And it is true components, right? We're managing the different components. It doesn't care whether you've got a video file or an audio file or a Word doc or whatever. You can associate things together and you can see those relationships, not just of the content itself, but the related material as well. Maybe you're storing the feedback from subject matter experts and you want to keep that all tightly controlled and part of the project. Or you want to have a project that has multiple docs that are part of the delivery. Those relationships are really important, and Windchill actually makes it fairly straightforward to do that. So these are the MVP features. For as far as I'm concerned, these are the minimum value proposition. MVP for me is minimum value proposition for any content management system. And Windchill has all of these things just straight up out of the box. We're talking about versioning and archiving, independent evolution of components. We're talking about achieving milestones across sets of components. We're talking about associative links to show relationships between all the content and different pieces of it. We got metadata attached to it. You've got search and records and audit trail and permission controls and workflow and automation, lifecycle, and all that kind of stuff. Right? This is minimum stuff you expect everything to have, and Windchill does have all of this. So those are great, but my other favorite things are these. I like the detail page. The detail page, which actually is more than one page because there's a bunch of tabs up at the top and down here too. It gives you different ways to look at the metadata attached to your content. I liken it to the card catalog in the library. When you go to pick up a book, you can go to look at it from any kind of dimension, author, title, subject, or you can use the computer and search, and you get up what you get is a record that tells you all the metadata about the thing that you're looking for. That metadata cannot be undervalued, right? And the detail page is part of that. The detail page is where that's recorded, as well as the relationships and the structure, and all of that stuff is in the detail page. You can get the representations, you can see how many times it's published, you can download that from there. The detail page is critical, in my opinion, and having it be more than just a simple record report is part of why it's really important, really good. You can configure its views to suit your preference. So if you're not fixing that home page so that you've got your workspaces and the other things that you care about, you can configure what goes on there and what the columns are. You can change those views, right? Why not? Why not make it your own and look at the stuff that you care about, not what somebody else cares about? Because writers care about different things than the engineers, and different things than doc control, and different things than a manager would need. So, you know, it's like Arbortext Editor and Publishing Engine and Styler, where you can configure things the way you want it so that it suits your personal user needs. Windchill does it too. That's part of what makes it what it all is. Third, automatic output creation. You can actually trigger both workflow states and parts of the UI so that you can have Windchill publish your document. You don't have to open it in Editor to publish. You can publish it right from Windchill. You're offloading the entire thing from your computer all the processing, all of everything. It's not even in your view. You're like, yep, great, run it. Every Friday night, I want you to run it and report back so we've got fresh things to look at on Monday morning. Sure, there's all kinds of things you can do. You just have to come up with those ideas. But that is part of what's available to you for certain in Windchill. You can do it process-based, time-based, condition-based. All kinds of triggers can be set up. You just have to imagine which one you want. You really can do anything you want. You can organize your content in multiple contexts. You can have libraries, you can have folders, you can have browse views. Really, the folders, think of them more like smart folders, not physical folders, not like a Windows folder structure. These are smart folders. I have a Windchill partner that we work with who's trying to convince me to get rid of the folder view entirely and just use the smart folder, the search smart folders. And I'm almost convinced. I am almost there. I'm not 100%, but I am really close now. Because we're all trained now to search, right? The first thing we do is go to Google and search. So why not take advantage of that innate behavior rather than trying to bolt on an old one? So I'm working on this. This is one, it's exciting for me. This is why it's number 4, because I'm really interested in it. But I haven't quite made the transition, but you know, I'm kind of old at this point. So, all right. And you can create your content architecture from the inside or not, and it's up to you. Do you use it? Do you have Windchill build out your structure? Or do you want to use a bookmap and editor and build it yourself and then have it go, which way do you want it to go? Both ways work. It's completely up to you, your process, your customer, and your needs, as it should be. See, search is the number one. Search is my number 1 favorite. I search everything. I search all the time, and I search on my computer. Inevitably, it's horrible. I feel like this is something we all do. We tag stuff, we put it in folders, we download it, we save it somewhere. But then when we go looking for it again, we don't go to those folders. We don't go to our computer where we've saved it. We don't go to that tag listing. We search for it again. So I'm starting to really go over to the other way of thinking, and that there is you can search everything in Windchill. It is full text search, so any word in your documents is available through the search. You can search by just object type, so you can just search dynamic documents or data concept topics or whatever it is that you happen to do. You can do it by time, you can do it by user, any of the metadata on those detail pages, you can search through those, right? You can expand and you can narrow your search results also. And that's a key thing to making search work. So that's a huge thing. Number 2 here is I want to say it's new to me, but it's new in the last bunch of years, 3 or 5 years. Promotion and review objects. These are objects in Windchill that can define relationships as well as do other things. But if you want to have a set of things that you can look at and version, you can do it through the promotion and review object rather than as a baseline across the entire repository. And it makes it really interesting. It's basically creating a tag in time, and you're marking everything against it. And they've become more useful to me over the years, and they're something I really I think is underused, certainly in documentation circles. Burst rules and custom zip file, you can put those right inside of Windchill. Don't have to have a custom directory on your desktop and on everybody's desktop. And it's, yeah, that's a huge thing, right? Because you can version those too. And easily with a record and a audit trail and all those other things you'd expect to find. And then, you know, Windchill really can store anything. You can store an audio file, a video file, a PowerPoint, it can store XML, it can store the CAD documents, it can store anything you want. It doesn't really care at all. So you can associate all of your background material if you wanted to store all of that as well as the final published documents. Sure, why not? Get that off your desktop, get that off the server, and associate it in a way that's meaningful with the thing that that information contributed to. Makes sense to me. All right, so now we're going to talk about the resource manager. Before we do, has anybody got anything in there?
Yeah, there's a couple.
Yay.
So yeah, someone else also commented that search is a must in Windchill.
Search is a
must. There was
must.
another question. Yeah. Can Windchill provide single sourcing options? I've heard different things.
Well, I would say it depends on what you mean by single sourcing options. That's a term that is a little too vague, but you can put all your components in there. You can reuse the components in any map that you want. Yeah, like it's by definition, that's exactly what it's doing.
Okay, and another question, can Windchill metadata be pulled into ATE to be used as flags for publishing rules?
You bet.
Okay.
You bet. Connecting them to the publishing rule, that's a really interesting idea, and I would have to play with that. On the other hand, pushing metadata in and out of the Windchill detail page and the editor document, yeah, that's called two-way metadata, and that happens all the time. So half of that is yes. The other half I'd have to figure out.
Okay, that was it for now.
All right, so let's talk about the Resource Manager. Resource Manager is one of my favorite parts of Editor, and turns out like it connects to Windchill and makes it super useful, right? In the Resource Manager, so in a data document, there's a Resource Manager that can pop up in the left-hand pane, and you can create new topics there. You can create, you can browse, you can create cross-references, you can create links, and you can browse directly into Windchill. So that when you're building your book map or looking for that reusable component for single sourcing, you can just browse right into Windchill, find the object, and then put it in there. You can create the cross-reference from inside Windchill. You can pull that document as a reusable component into Windchill. You can pull a content reference. So something inside a document inside Windchill can be pulled into your current living document. It is unbelievably useful. And it retains, because you go through the Resource Manager and you're doing this through the mechanism that connects you to the content management system, it preserves the linking mechanism and it constructs it correctly so that no matter who publishes it works, right? Whether PE is publishing behind the scenes from Windchill, or PE is publishing from your desktop, or Styler is publishing from your desktop, everything will continue to work because going through the Resource Manager, it hides from you the stuff you'd have to remember to get right, and it just does it for you. And it's really, really useful. You can put anything that you would put into your document or connect to from your document, all in there, all part of that mechanism. It's all part of Resource Manager. You can get through it through that panel. You can also do it through the object browser in Editor. So there's two ways, there's millions of ways to do the same thing, right? And the object browser also has the search, if anybody has ever used that. It's not always obvious that it's there, but you can set, like, the search is in that object browser too. So there's ways to get in and out of Windchill for the user things, for the documentation creation things. Even though I would tell you, if you're doing operational things, go to the browser. So this is why I love the Resource Manager. This is a huge one. I would love it for more than just the data doc type, because really, if I was searching through the repository trying to find that graphic and put it in my DocBook document, there is still a need for DocBook out there. That it's just so handy. It's so convenient. It works just so well. It's really, really great. Do I hear some questions? No? Okay.
No questions right now, yeah.
All right, so that's on our wish list. We're gonna wrap up. We're right at 45. We're gonna wrap up the wish list, and that Resource Manager for everything, at least the link and image tabs, those are on my wish list. That is something I would absolutely want, because that Resource Manager is probably one of my favorite features. The blue-white block indicators for key definitions, I'd like that too for keys. We're talking about data keys, data key definitions, to know which key is the one that's active. That would be really useful. Also, that samples directory, I'd like the samples directory to start expanding for the new layout designer, which came out in December. I always want the layout designer, and I never have enough of a project to use it as much as I want to. But that's a huge thing. Anybody who's doing last minute production, and that the layout designer now exists. It's not just the programmer one, but the layout designer one. You can fix your page breaks. You can push things around a little bit, and it's handy and useful if you need it. at the end of production. So, and having that attached to Styler, I'd love some samples. It's great, great one. So that's what's on my wish list. I don't know what's on yours. Put that in the chat window. And in the meantime, this is me. I'm Liz Fraley. This is my LinkedIn up here. You go to lizfraley.me and you can connect to me on LinkedIn. Make sure you put in the note that you saw me in this presentation so that I can remember where it came from. And if you need anything like that paper, link to the paper, or you want to know where the Arbortext So Easy a Child Can Do It is, connect with me on LinkedIn. I publish there on a regular basis.